Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today we are going to look at just a couple different ways that you can use your large stamps or large stamp images in your card making. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 4 different card ideas I want to share with you, and each of them feature a very similar layout, but I used the stamp in this particular stamp set differently. So we're going to take a look at these 4 different techniques and 4 different ways that you can use it. And you get to decide if you want to color your image or not color your image. So the cards in this video feature a Child is Born stamp set. So we're going to be using this large stamp image here to create all 4 cards. And I will also be using the branching out dies. So I'm using the 2 largest dies in this particular set to create this focal point for the cards. However, feel free to use any supplies you have on hand to create your cards. Okay, so the first way that you can use this stamp set is to just stamp the image on some pattern paper. So it's a great way to add color to the image without having to actually color it yourself. So let me show you how I created this card. Just start with a piece of pattern paper that's large enough for your image. So I just have like a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece. And this is actually autumn paper. So this is what the back side of the paper looks like. And what we want to do is simply stamp this image. So I'm going to be using some early espresso ink. And I have this large image. So we'll just ink this up and just stamp it kind of right in the middle of your pattern paper. So the pattern paper just kind of fills in the color or the design for this particular image. So now we're just going to use one of the dies to cut out this image for our card. So I just ran this through my embossing machine just to cut out the shape. You can use any of the die shapes that you have on hand. And then the next thing you want to do is just add any greetings and any other images that you want to add. So we'll just stamp this little greeting up here. And then there's this nice little star image. So we'll stamp that up at the top. So now let's go ahead and put the card together. So I'm using white cardstock for the base of my card. Then I cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of pattern paper, and I'm just going to cover the whole entire card front. Then I took the largest die that was in this particular set, and I just cut it out of gray cardstock, so that's basic gray. And we're just going to adhere these 2 pieces together. So let's add some dimensionals. All right, so once you add the dimensionals, then you can go ahead and add this piece to the gray piece. So we're just going to layer these together. And then we will add this to the card front. So it's a very simple design and just a great way to use this image and let the paper do all the work to add the color and design to the image. The second card idea just features the same image, but this time we're going to do a little bit of embossing with some gold embossing powder on black cardstock. So we'll start with just a scrap piece of black cardstock, and then you're going to use this embossing buddy and just rub it across the cardstock. This just removes any static. Then you're going to take a Versamark and you're going to ink up this image with the Versamark. So we'll go ahead and do this. Stamp it directly in the center. Then you're going to sprinkle it with some embossing powder. So this is just the gold embossing powder. And then we will heat to set the image. Okay, so I have cut out this image here with the same dies. So we're basically using the same layout for all of these cards. So let's go ahead and use our Versamark, and we'll stamp our little greeting up towards the top. And then we'll add some stars over on the side. And let's again sprinkle generously some of this embossing powder on there. And then we will heat to set our greeting. And now we're just going to put the card together the exact same way that I put together the other card. We're just going to use some different pattern paper. Then I cut out a larger shape here from gold foil paper. Then we can add our emboss piece right over the top. I just have a couple dimensionals on there. And then we can adhere this to the card front. So that is the second way that you can use this image in your card making. Okay, so let's take a look at these two different cards. So these are two cards that you can create without doing any coloring. So the first card, you can just let the pattern paper do all the work. And then here, the second card idea is simply doing a little bit of embossing on some darker colored cardstock. All right, so those are some ways that you can use it without coloring. Now let's take a look at two different ways that you can color this image, and we're going to use the exact same layouts. Okay, so the third way that you can use this image is to just do some coloring with some watercolor pencils. And so I like to use crumb cake cardstock and just kind of do a little bit of white coloring with the colored pencils, but you could certainly do this on white cardstock and use all different colors for your colored pencils. But let's take a look at how to do this. So I started out by just stamping the image on some crumb cake cardstock, just using early espresso ink, and then I die cut the image out using the branching out dies. And I'm basically going to use just two different colored pencils. So I have this white pencil, which you're basically just going to go along and just color in the image. You're going to add the white to, I added it to the clothing for both of these. The other watercolor pencil that I used is Early Espresso, and this one I was able to just add a little bit of color to the hair. So you just kind of go around and color in the image. All right, so basically I just went all around and colored in both of these images, well actually all three, using the white colored pencil. And then I used the Early Espresso just to color in some of these other images. So that's really all there is to it. And it just gives it a really elegant look. So I'm just going to adhere this to a piece of Early Espresso cardstock. So I use those two layering dies together. And then we're just going to adhere this to the center of our card base. And it just gives a really beautiful look to this image, and it's pretty simple to do. All right, and the fourth way that you can use this image is to color it in with some Stampin Blends. So I'm going to show you how I did some of the blending on this image to create this card. So you can start by stamping the image using black Memento ink. So you can stamp the image, die cut it out, and then add any additional images that you like. And so for this, I decided to use a variety of different Stampin Blends. So I have dark and light cloud cover, and that's actually what I used over here. So we'll color in Mary with the light. So basically I start with the light, and then I move to adding the dark color. So we're going to color all of this in, and then we'll do a little bit of highlighting with the dark Stampin' Blend. All right, so now we're going to use this dark Stampin' Blend, and I'm going to use the fine tip, and I'm just going to go around and just kind of highlight the edges of like the outfit here, and then kind of where these little creases are. So anywhere you have those little black parts, you can just kind of highlight right along these little creases in. Then we're going to use some crumb cake, and we're going to color in this over here. So start with the light. I always start with the light color and just color the entire image, and then I go around and add the little highlights with the darker blend. And then you can go back over it and just kind of go over the dark highlighted areas and just blend it a little bit more with the light shade. And it'll just give you a really neat little effect just by doing that. So we're just going to go over this a little bit And let's also color in this image. And so we'll just continue on. So for the hair, we just used the light shade of Pecan Pie. And then you just use the dark to just kind of highlight different aspects of the hair. There's really no wrong way to do this. You just kind of go along and just highlight whatever parts you want and add whatever highlights you want to add until you achieve the desired look. And then we'll just add some dark right down here. And then to color in the rest, we're just going to use some ivory just to color in the hands and the face. Okay, so once you finish coloring it, that is what the finished product looks like. This is one of my favorites. And then I just embossed a piece of cloud cover cardstock. So I just embossed the background, and all we're going to do is add some dimensionals to the back and just pop this right up on the front of the card. And you just get a really beautiful card. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 4 different ways that you can use this stamp set or any other large stamp set that you have to create 4 completely different cards. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.